I read somewhere, I'm about to make up a fact that
Yes.
I read somewhere, I heard somewhere.
Yes,
but I think I'm
We'll
about
fact
to say something with authority. I think like more than any other generation, like, and I don't know if this has changed since COVID, but like millennials, young Gen Xers, and older Gen Zers are motivated more than anything by convenience.
Yes. There's a lot going on in our lives, and I think
We don't have a lot going for us, so
we
if
don't have
something
a
can
lot
get
going
delivered,
for us.
It's really nice.
And we've often convinced ourselves that purchasing something is the best way to fix a problem. Like if we can just optimize part of our process, if I can just have that little shelf between my washer dryer and my cabinet, like my life is going to be better.
And you know what? I don't think that is untrue. I'll tell you that.
I know.
I don't think that. I think your life is going to be better.
Yes.
Your whole life, the part of your life where you're searching for laundry pods and like a lint catcher, yeah, it's going to be a lot. That part of your life is going to be a lot better.
This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
And I'm Caroline Moss. I am the host and founder of Gee Thanks Just Bought It, which is an online community based on product recommendations.
It's amazing. It's like my favorite thing. Like you are always so strongly featured in my Instagram stories. And I'm like it's just a delight. I love it very much. And I'll also say that it's like a way of thinking about buying things that is like thoughtful. You know, it's not just like, here's a sale, here's a sale, here's a sale. And we'll talk more about this later. But like it is very much about getting you the right thing instead of getting you the cheap thing. Is that a good way to describe it?
I think so, yeah.
And you are just a really good shopper and good recommender. Like it's just, you're a perfect person to lead this community.
I'm so happy that particular talent of mine is finally paying off.
Don't you feel like that's something that we used to say about like our mom's generation? Like there was always like a friend in the mom group that was like the good shopper.
Yeah, for sure. Was it your mom?
No.
My mom neither. She doesn't like shopping. She's
my mom does not like shopping.
Does
either.
not like shopping. Maybe it skips a generation.
I think
Maybe
it
I'm
does.
just like, I love shopping.
I loved the mall more than anything. I still
Yes.
love a mall experience. Like when I go down to Seattle, one of the most relaxing things that my friends and I do is go to like the outdoor kind of bougie mall. It's
fun.
called U Village. Mm-hmm. And there's like overpriced wine that you can have while you're sitting outside, and then
Nice.
stroll from like Anthropology to like the overpriced kids store. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is. It's like an American pastime that's gone by the wayside. And so like whenever we get a chance to pick it back up, there's an element of nostalgia, I think, for our generation.
Yep.
Like, you know, that was the first place we got some true autonomy was the mall.
Yeah.
But again, I don't really go back often. But when I do, I'm always like, I should do this more. This is fun.
Well, and now you live in New York, and there's not really much mall experience to be
It's
had
a
in New
whole, the
York.
whole place is a mall. I mean, it's a,
That's true. That well,
mall.
and when I go to New York, one of my favorite things now is to like go down to Soho and just like walk into shops and touch things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when I was there a couple months ago, I was like, I have several hours. I'm going to go to museum, and then I'm going to take the train down to Soho, and I'm going to touch some things that I've had in my online cart.
yes.
It was amazing.
How was the experience? Yeah, was it great?
It was great and like solidified. You know, I talked to a salesperson. I was like, how waterproof is this? You know, that's
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so tell us all about Gee Thanks Just Bought It.
Yeah. So Gee Thanks Just Bought It. It started as actually as a podcast
Yeah.
almost 5 years ago in the fall of 2019. I just wanted to talk to people about what they were buying. Like, tell me the last thing you bought. I'm just a nosy person. I want to know like what people are shopping for and how much they paid. I want to know what motivated the purchase. And what ended up being so fun about it was it kind of became this place where people brought some of like their most unsexy purchases that they were really excited about. So I remember like someone brought like a drain plug. Like finally I found a drain plug that like fits my specific bathtub so that when I take a bath and it hits that emergency like, oh no, overfill level, it will let it go up like 2 more inches before it drains. And she was like so excited. And we sold so many drain plugs from that. It was like the infomercial for drain plugs. But it actually spawned into this online community on Facebook and on Instagram and in a newsletter that grew because I think while Wirecutters of the world and Consumer Reports of the world are really great, most people aren't really looking for the best of something. They're looking for something that works for them. And what does it matter if something is the best if it's not the best for you? And so I've taken sort of the ethos of like the researching and the shopping and like where do you get the best deal and who's selling it and what do the reviews say, and brought it to sort of like a forum where if you're buying a stroller and you live in a city and you don't have a car, you can say, I'm looking for a stroller. What should I get? Nothing out there is really going to help you. But in G Thanks, you go and you say, like, I'm looking for a stroller. What should I get? And what you'll get back is community members saying, like, okay, like, I'm also a city mom. So what's really important to me is that these wheels can take mileage, right? And whereas, like, some other parent who's like, I'm never really walking with the stroller, but I'm constantly folding it up and throwing it in the back of my car. Can I do that without my partner? Can I do it while the baby's, like, on my hip? And someone will come in and be like, okay, so that first stroller for the city, like, won't work for that, but this is the stroller you want for that. And it kind of makes the purchase process a little bit more community oriented. And you feel a little bit more confident that what you're going to get is actually going to meet your needs and not necessarily like fulfill check boxes of a bracket of some editor in New York's, you know, standard. Nothing against the wire cutter at all. But you know what I mean? It's just, it's like, what do I care if someone over here that I don't know says this is the best? I have no idea if this is going to actually work for me. And so I've tried to make that the experience of G Thanks. And,
you know, people love giving recommendations, I find. Mm-hmm. Like, I see this all the time in the threads that I do for culture study. Like, if you ask for recommendations or make a space where people can ask for recommendations or advice. And I think, like, you know, what I always say as a guideline for that, and I know is a guideline for your space too, is like your mileage may vary. Everyone's giving the advice based on what they have experienced and like with an acknowledgement that that's not necessarily going to be universal. And so it's not like the voice of God saying, this is the best pair of glasses, this is the best pair of underwear, whatever it is. There might be a component, and maybe some listeners are thinking this right now, that you're like, oh, the only way that we bond with each other is by like talking about what we're going to buy. But oh my gosh, think about like how much time do you think our grandparents spent? Like, I'm thinking of my grandma and her three sisters, like just like talking about what they were going to buy. Mm-hmm. It's just that they were doing it as sisters, maybe on the phone, maybe drinking weak coffee. Like, right, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they were just like, oh, I don't know. Am I going to buy these chips? Like,
and also, right. Or like, oh, there's a sale. Like, oh my gosh, my grandmother, notoriously, when we say it skips a generation, like I am my grandmother's granddaughter. Like my grandmother, when she lived alone, after my grandfather died, like if she saw a 10 for 10 box of pasta deal at ShopRite, she was getting it. She is one person, but she's not gonna let 10 for 10, you know what I mean? Like she's getting 10 bucks pasta. The other thing too, Anne, that G Thanks has really taught me is like, if people are out there being like, oh, we only bond over what we buy, it's actually more than that. It's like consumerism and spending money touches every part of our lives in so many different areas. And what I see in the G Thanks Facebook group so much is like, there's actually a real tender kind of like human connection. Like, yes, it comes down to I'm looking for something for like X, Y, and Z, but it's also, there's so much like humanity at the core of it, which sounds like kind of funny because it is, you know, like capitalism. But when we live in capitalism, we all have to buy stuff. I mean, that's like the undeniable truth of the world that we live in, is like we have to purchase things. That is the system that we have. And I think when you can bring a little bit of power back to the consumer and feel like you're not just blindly like, oh, that Instagrammer said this is the best, so I get like, oh, well, that person said it's the best. It's like you actually, and like I don't know, like, oh, all the Amazon reviews say like X, Y, and Z, but I don't know who those people are. You know what I mean? Like you want to go to a place where, I don't know, there's so many people who are like, I have an elderly parent and like we're trying to make sure that they don't fall. Like, does anyone have experience with setting up a house to meet those needs? And there is always going to be someone and who's going to be like, I was there 2 years ago. This is what I bought that really helped. You wouldn't think to buy it. Like, that's the kind of stuff I think that you really can't get from just searching like best, etc. Like that, those sort of human driven experiential anecdotes behind why we buy the things that we buy are the things that make us more informed. And then ultimately, I think a little bit more in control of like the stuff we bring into our homes, the stuff we bring into our lives, and what we spend our hard-earned money on.
And I'll also say that I don't think that this group is against reusing or repurposing in any
not at
way.
all.
It's like, oh, no, don't buy something new. Go look on Facebook Marketplace and see if someone is reselling this. Like,
Definitely.
that is, like that's absolutely part of the ethos. And I think that, the questions that we received today and what we're going to talk about in this episode are in many ways a reaction to the very cold experience of online shopping that feels very like disembodied, like you don't know who to trust, like you don't have any of the experience of actually going into a space where there's someone knowledgeable to talk to you about the items. Yep. And then you also, and this is like a symptom of our difficulty forming community, like you don't have that many people in your real life. Like in my group chat of my friends, someone will ask for a recommendation of something. And like people have busy lives and sometimes no one answers. But if you go to the G Thinks Facebook group, someone is always wasting time and ready to answer your question.
Me first and foremost, for sure. Oh, but yeah, totally. I mean, like, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I look forward to these questions because I really do think what I was missing in online shopping was community. And so I built it,
Yeah.
Like, but I think that you're right. There is like a really cold, isolating experience that takes you out of your immediate world that you live in. This is the trade-off of convenience.
Hey everyone, it's Anne. While we're on the subject of online shopping, I'm coming to you to ask you to consider pitching in $5 a month to keep the show going. Yes, you get perks like the full version of every episode, including previous shows we paywalled on Taylor and Travis, Beyonce, ACOTAR. But you also get the smug satisfaction of knowing you're supporting an independent podcast making its way in the world. And that makes $5 a real bargain. If you can pitch in and help us to keep going, head to culturestudypod.substack.com. Okay, thanks. Back to the show. All right, so these first two questions are about sorting through like all of the shit that we see online. So first question is from Sarah.
How can I assess how legit some online retailers are? I get so many ads for attire that I think I'd like, but can't see in person from sellers I've never heard of.
So I think of this as Instagram targeting selling, and it's almost always like drop shipping from pop-up companies, low quality. It's like it looks really nice when you see it in the ad, and then it comes and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, foiled again. I did this with a really cute ring. I literally bought a ring and I was like, this is plastic. I bought a plastic ring.
So
shoot.
When I used to be on Twitter, sometimes I would say like, is this a legit company? And it's funny in hindsight, like some companies that are very much legit that I was like I didn't do this for Everlane, but we're talking about like companies that are on like the level of something like Everlane that I was like, is this a real company?
Totally.
You don't know. There are so many companies.
You don't know. There are so many companies. I don't blame you. Someone did that in the G Thinks group the other day. They were like, do we think Bowden is legit? And we were like, Bowden is legit.
Bowden is legit.
But if you don't know, how would you know?
Yes. So how do you ascertain if a company is legit? Or is like the quality is going to match what you see in the pictures, I guess.
Yeah, right. I think first, decide what legit means to you. Is it like, am I even going to get these clothes? Is it like, I think like, first of all, there are like very actual pragmatic ways of figuring this out. Like Trustpilot is a good place to go to. Like literally just see if this company is real. Plug it in, trustpilot.com, and they'll tell you. Say even literally type in, this is the internet, you guys. Reddit exists. I don't use it because I think it's scary, but like you can literally type in like, clothing company scam and you will get what you need from Google. Remember that you are not living in a vacuum. So if you are getting some targeted ad, it's getting targeted to a lot of people, and someone has already kind of figured this out. You can reverse Google image search on whatever image they're showing you. But I also think that people sometimes need to step back, and I think it's very hard. We live in the world of Amazon. We live in the world, like I said, of convenience, and mass-produced everything means that the prices don't have to be high. But like Temu, for example, you're always going to get like an ad for Temu where it's like a piece of furniture for $4. and someone will be like, oh, is this legit? And it's like, let's just like use our thinking caps for a second. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And I think remember that like it's very easy to make a website. It's very easy to steal pictures from places. So that's where I would start. And a reverse Google image search is your friend. I think you would be surprised at where you find some of the pictures that are being used as like proprietary.
It's a complicated thing to talk about people's relationship with online shopping, right? Like, I think there are people who are very much like, I am not going to do any online shopping. I'm not going to buy it from any mass producers. I'm not going to have any shipping.
Great.
And how do we hold like that thinking in concert with the fact that online shopping has made so many things available for people who can't get out of their homes for various reasons, who can't travel, who are in more rural areas. Like I am trying to untangle my thoughts about it all the time. Like, I'm constantly at once nostalgic for a time when the only clothes that you could get as a teenager were the ones at the mall, and it was all the same, like Massimo shirt and Calvin Klein sweatshirt. And also I'm like, oh, that like so severely limited the ways that I could express myself and how it was like okay to be a person in the world, right? So this is not an episode about the ethics of online shopping. This is about how we online shop. And so like, I'm sure you get this a lot though, right? Like people who are asking you like, you're talking about shopping. You shouldn't be buying cheap things. Like, this is not sustainable. You should be thinking about labor.
I think it comes up from time to time. I think people try to be I think we all try to be as thoughtful as possible. I think we also all try to be realistic. I love thrifting, you know?
Yeah.
I also love buying stuff. It's just who I am. I think it's one of those things too where there are systems in place that end up making the individual feel a lot of the weight of bigger choices. I think, we can all do our part. I think there's always that conversation of like, oh, I would never buy from Amazon. Like, that's great. That is great. Like, I have a hard and fast rule. I don't buy books from Amazon. Yeah. Like, never. And I think it's a keyboard warrior world where it's like, you know, people want to be like, well, I actually don't do this. Like, great. Okay. And I actually don't do this. So like, okay, here we are, both of us not actually doing things. So now what? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it comes up a lot, but I think also like to ignore the fact that it exists, that it's a real, that it's a billion dollar industry every year. It is the way we live now is, you know, I think to ignore that is silly because it is what it is. And a lot of things have been put into place over the years to create this world in which we are constantly like online shopping, online being sold things, buying things, trying to fix our lives with things.
But you are totally correct that like the way that we are forced to think about our options in terms of enacting change are like if we could just change our personal behaviors and shame others into changing their personal behaviors instead of do it. Pushing our legislators to make massive systemic changes that will change the entire shape of the economy 1,000%. And how our world works. And that doesn't mean that I think like no ethical consumption under capitalism. I just mean it's a less productive solution for us to think about how we as individuals can make each other feel bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so next question kind of gets into some of this stuff. This one comes from Alexa.
The process of researching the perfect item by reading online reviews is a method I use to soothe my anxiety, especially reviews with pictures. Thank you to the people who post reviews with pictures. This applies to anything: the perfect, comfy, no VPL panties, the best no-leak water bottle, the ultimate tubing mascara. Somehow, a purchase being so thoroughly researched via these reviews makes it seem less impulsive and something more you genuinely need in your life that will be an investment piece in the years to come. My question is, how much of online shopping culture is just soothing anxiety? And why don't more people talk about the shame that this comes with, spending more than we can afford on things that we don't need? As a side note, I recently learned that returned items often go straight to landfill because it's more economical to do this than to resell them. I'm completely horrified by this. Please talk about it. I think people need to know.
Okay, so let's talk about the anxiety part first. Do you relate to this at all?
So a few words here pique my tingly spidey senses or whatever. The words being perfect, best, ultimate. which is kind of what I try to get away from in my shopping. I think that like anxiety, first of all, I think anxiety is like deeply individual, right? So if you're somebody who likes control and is trying to, and I say this as someone who loves control, is trying to sort of like, if I have this, then like things will go right. And if I do this, then things will go right. If that to you comes out in shopping, then yeah, that makes sense. I think people do use online shopping as a way of feeling like they have some sort of say in one aspect of their lives, especially people our age, right? Like we're like a weird generation and like a weird time. We don't really have a blueprint. We are not doing the things that our parents did. We don't live the way that our parents lived. And I think that it can be a little stressful to look ahead and really not know what this world is going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. But like, hey, look at this ad for this water bottle. Like I'd be very hydrated if I had this water bottle. And what I see from G Things and what I see from my own, I think people are very aware of overconsumption. I think people are very aware of how much stuff every year that they give away or find and go like, I bought this. Like, what is this? Right. How many clothes in their closet they don't wear. And I think finding that balance of like, well, I still do need that, you know, I do need X. Like I do have to buy X. Like the idea of if you research it, if you do everything right, if you spend a ton of time just like pouring yourself into like figuring out like which item you need to get, then you don't feel that shame of that like impulse purchase. I think that that's a very real thing. And I think the reason people don't want to talk about the shame that comes with that is because it comes back to money, and people don't like talking about money, and people don't want to talk about there's a lot of shame with finances. There's a lot of shame with having and not having. And Instagram is like a 24/7 television channel of watching what people have. And there's not a ton of transparency either around how people have what they have, where'd they get it from, you know? Like sometimes when people are like, oh, my parents bought me this house, I like them more for it. You know what I mean? I'm like, thank you, because at least I'm not sitting here being like, wait a minute, I have a job.
How'd you get that down payment?
How'd you get that house? You and I both have jobs. Why don't I have a house? You know? And I think everyone, in an attempt also to win people's attention online, it's like a race to be the most relatable. And a lot of relatability comes down to like, you know, does your life look like mine? Does your life look like something I aspire to? All of these things cost money. And if you don't know where the money is coming from, it's coming from somewhere, whether that's like someone's maxed out credit card, whether it's someone's parents that you don't know about. It says a lot about who we are as people. You know, it's like a really intimate form of like showing yourself. Like I wouldn't want someone going through my credit card statement and being like, oh, really? Wow. Okay. I'm like, oh my, like that would be like my worst nightmare.
I mean, like Charlie shames me about this all the time in like a very funny way. He's like, yours would just be so much compost. And like,
but see, like if you can tell a lot about a person by their credit card statement, compost doesn't show up on mine, Anne. Okay. So just so you know, like mine would be like a lot of Target. Mine would be like a lot of Target. I think if you feel like online shopping is soothing your anxiety, I think that's actually a very real thing that you can train yourself out of. I talk to my therapist, like you can seek help for that. That's not stupid or like frivolous. Like that's actually, if you are like identifying that like, oh, when I'm feeling anxious or out of control, like I spend a lot of money online, or like there are boxes that show up to my house and I don't remember what I bought. Like that's actually a real thing. There is someone who you can talk to about that for sure.
Right. And identifying it, I think, is oftentimes the first step to being able to grapple with it. So strategies that I've seen people do very effectively is like, I can put as many things into my cart as I want, right? And then, but I'm not allowed to buy them until
I can't check
I have a
out.
timer. Yeah, and for like however many days. Because that works for me all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, like what was I thinking? Like I don't want that. I love doing that much.
I love doing the like if I'm still thinking about it in 2 weeks, I'll let myself get it. Or you know, my friend Nora does a thing every once in a while where she just keeps a running notes app of every single thing she wants, like every fleeting thought. Because it is really easy. And I'll give you a really funny example of this. Is that like when I moved into my own place last year after I separated from my ex-husband, I was like throwing myself into like all these hobbies. And like there was a commercial on television, and there was just like a guy, I don't know what it was. It was either a commercial or like one of those dance competition shows or whatever. But a guy was tap dancing. And I was like, I know how to tap dance because I tap danced as a kid. And then I like went on Amazon and in 3 seconds flat bought tap shoes. What? Like just was like, this is what I'm gonna do this. Like this is gonna be a hobby for me. I'm gonna like throw myself into the world of tap. I'm gonna take tap classes. I'm gonna like, I should have just written it down and been like, circle back on this, Caroline. But instead I went on Amazon. I was like, Capezio tap shoes, size 10.
Capezios.
Yeah.
Capezios.
I literally bought like $70 tap shoes, and then they arrived and I had forgotten I bought them, and I was like, okay, this is a lesson for me. Like keep a notes app would have been perfect for this. Like tap shoes. Because in 2 weeks, in 2 hours, I would have gone back to that and been like, no. But I think you have to set up boundaries also between you and
it's friction.
It's
just
flowing.
Friction.
Absolutely. Stop storing your credit card in your phone. If that's a thing for you. But there was no way. I realized after that moment, no matter what line of work I'm in, even if it is this line of work, there should not be a way for me to pull out the computer that I keep in my pocket and in 4.2 seconds have a pair of tap shoes on their way to my house. I realized in that moment, I need to set up friction. I need to set up some boundaries. I need to set up some checkpoints. We all do it, And I think that either there's not a lot of people who want to talk about it because we all do it and it's actually so normalized. It's probably that mixed in with a little bit of this is embarrassing shit. It really is.
2 things I'll say is that I think that some of the search for the perfect thing is bound up in millennial perfectionism. That's not unique to millennials, but I know it as a particularly if I just work harder, then I will do the thing that will fix my life. And that includes reading enough reviews, right? So if you just do the research, then things will work out and the right thing will fix the hole in your life.
Yes.
Not true. And that the other thing that has really helped me, and this was true during the pandemic, and this is true living on an island, is being face to face with the reality of what my purchases require of people. We have a month every year where the ferry goes out of service. And so all of the mail, all of the packages have to be hauled onto the passenger ferry.
Wow.
In a wagon. And so whatever you buy, the post person is dragging it over in a wagon. We're not talking about in a giant truck, Amazon going around. It is going around in a wagon. I think that has helped me just to be a little bit more mindful. And this also brings us to this last kind of add-on to the question, which is that once you have the knowledge in your head, and Amanda Mole wrote about this very vividly last year, about what actually happens to your returns, which is that most of them are junked, then it has personally made me so much more conscious about I'm just going to order the entire catalog and try them all at home as my personal styling area, right? You know what I mean? I can't do that anymore. So I spend a lot more time trying to get to the right size or the right thing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it just has made me more mindful because I can't unknow that knowledge.
Yep. And I want to also add on to that again, going back to system of change versus shaming individuals. There are 2 people I follow on Instagram, Dumpster Dive King and the Trash Walker, who are often bringing awareness to sort of corporate policies that allow stores to throw out either their returns and these are IRL, brick and mortar stores that either are they're allowed to throw out their returns or they junk old seasonal stuff and they cut up the clothing so no one can wear it. They slash the soles of shoes so no one can wear them. And there are a lot of laws trying to get passed about sort of because all those companies can write the lost profit as write-offs, right?
Yeah.
So it's a moneymaker for big corporations. But there are laws that are trying to pass laws that sort of put a stop on companies being able to, basically burn the return and call it a loss so that they can make up for the money on their taxes. So if that's something that really concerns you, there actually are things in place that you can be vocal about so that hopefully there's change to that in the future.
And I'll also say that you can shop companies that are very good about their resale market, like have a secondary market and or sell their remainders and their returns. Okay, we're going to do this one really quickly because it's something that I think about constantly.
Great.
This is about a dreaded side effect of online shopping. This is from Hannah.
Has email marketing gotten out of control, or is it the natural progression of consumerism and consumption? I'm not just thinking about the rush of holiday shopping, but also why I regularly get multiple emails per day for brands like Ulta or Madewell manufacturing urgency. In my experience, these also seem to be coming from brands with a primarily female demographic.
Okay, I don't think this is gendered.
No.
I get so many emails from West Elm, and the difficulty is that, like, I need my shipping notification, so I can't just unsubscribe utterly. But, like, if an alien was looking at my inbox, they would think my best friend was West Elm, right? Like, that's who I get the most correspondence from. And part of it is because they're part of a larger brand conglomerate. So it's not just from West Elm. It's West Elm Kids. It's Pottery Barn. It's all of these. Pottery Barn Teen. I get so many Pottery Barn Teen. And I think that the reason they send them is because they work. They work at a low percentage, but they work in some capacity. And the only thing you can do is figure out how to unsubscribe.
Yeah, I would say you should replace email. You should use the Shop app. I'm not sponsored, but they actually they have access to like everything that you bought. All those tracking shows up in the Shop app. You don't have to get emails, so like you can see when your things are coming. But that's how you can unsubscribe. My issue is the text messages I get from companies.
I love that I can just say stop though. That's nice.
I know, but I never do. I just like let them sit there, and I'm like, ugh. It's like I've turned my text inbox has turned into my email inbox, just like things I don't reply to and things I don't read.
No, same. And my friends look at me in horror. They're like, "How do you have 155 unread text messages?" And I'm like, "Well, brands."
Okay, so this is my thought on this. In this day and age, I have two like strongly held beliefs about shopping, which is one, you should never be paying full price for much, very little, because you don't have to. There's always a deal. Two, everything is readily available. So all of the urgency is manufactured unless you are looking to buy something very specific and you are waiting for the price to drop. I think what people forget is that like just because you have not saved any money if you are spending money on something you don't need, even if it is on sale, you haven't saved anything. And I think that people have a hard time, myself included, but it is a very good practice. And in doing this as a job for 5 years, I have now actually been able to put a product. I am allowed to skip sales. I am allowed to not buy things. There are going to be times where it's like, and I had this experience a couple weeks ago. Hey, we're doing the frame TV is on sale. It's $500 off every single size for like 2 weeks only or whatever. I had to buy a new TV for my apartment. I wanted the frame. I needed to get the frame. I would have been pissed if I missed that sale. Yeah. It lined up perfectly with the purchase that I needed to make at the price that I wanted to pay. There is also a part of me that if I didn't need a TV, would have seen that and been like, well, $500 off. Like, I should get it, you know? And so I think that there is urgency that's manufactured. But if you can kind of line up finding the good deal with the thing that you actually need to buy, you will financially make a lot of very good decisions. I think it is the culture of thinking like, oh my God, it's 25% off till the end. I don't need anything, but it's 25% off. Well, guess what? In 2 months, they'll do it again. And so, you know what I mean? You'll be fine and you'll get what you need then. The urgency is always going to be pushed in your face. You know what you need and when you need it.
Melody, you said you have a tip for this?
Yeah. Caroline, do you use the Honey app? Or not app? Do you use Honey, period?
I use Honey. I use Rakuten. I have them all in place. But yes.
Caroline's like, listen.
I use Honey for those purchases that like I want eventually because you can set a price drop alert for like notify me when it's 10% off or more.
Yep.
So like there was this chandelier from Crate and Barrel that I really wanted. And fun. It was never, ever, ever on sale. It was on my drop list for like 3 years. And then it finally went on sale and I was able to like snap it up. Yeah.
Is there no better feeling? But guess what? There's going to be so many people like bought that chandelier just because it was on sale in that moment and they got like one email about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and therein lies the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love that for you.
I will also say that any sort of marketing that's like, these shoes that always sell out are back. And like, I hate that, because if your shoes are always selling out, that's a supply chain failure, and you're just advertising your supply chain failure.
Job. Exactly. I always think, I'm like, if you know they always sell out, why are you not stocked? The other marketing tactic I hate is the viral TikTok. We have now hearkened back to a place of 2012 where we're like, this is breaking the internet. Nothing has broken the internet. The internet is fine. But yeah, oh God, these shoes that are always selling out. It's like, well, then maybe you should make more, because you know that everyone's buying them. So what's up? What's going on with you guys?
And it's also probably manufactured scarcity. Like, they're like,
Absolutely.
they sold out. The ones in this room sold out.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, last question. This one's from Megan.
It seems like no one but trolls and the truly aggrieved are willing to leave bad reviews, particularly in spaces where the maker, author, whoever are able to see and potentially engage with the review. While I completely understand and agree with the impulse to spare them a barrage of negative feedback, especially if the product was ultimately just not for you, it also seems to increasingly be leaving a vacuum of constructive feedback that actually helps the right audience find the product or helps the maker improve future iterations. Is this just how it is now? What is the benefit of a system or a society that only functionally allows people to leave 5-star or 1-star reviews?
Wow, this is like a philosophical question.
I was going to say, this is like so deep.
This is pass or fail. Like, there's no gradations. But I don't know. First of all, I don't love the stars as like a means of reviewing something, just generally, because I think they're imprecise. I would rather, but I understand that like that's how you can aggregate an overall feeling about something. What's your take? Because the places that I really rely on for clothing and for other items, like they do actually have a lot of engaged reviewers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends. I think on the biggest platforms, on the Amazons of the world, and it is sort of like a WebMD self-fulfilling prophecy situation. You're always going to find a review that like exactly says what you like. If you want a product, you're going to only look at the 5-star reviews. You know what I mean? Like if you went to a restaurant and you hate it, you're going to look at the 1-star reviews and be like, those are my people. You know what I mean? Like also like Amazon, a lot of the companies will give out like a 20% off code if you leave a review. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like quid pro quo review processes in place. I think we have to trust ourselves more. I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt. I think there's something right on the money about this idea of like 1-star reviews are from just truly aggrieved people. I think it's like when you are mad enough, or if you feel like you have been wronged by a product, by a place, a restaurant, a service. One of the few things that you have in your power is to go try to bring down the business with your review. That's why when restaurants come under fire for, viral news stories that happen, like they're
having
hit with a barrage of
Republican politician who went to that restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then you got all these people who've never been to the restaurant leaving 1-star reviews. And unfortunately, like it actually is a very powerful tool at your disposal because it really can F with a business. But yeah, I think that like we started out, I think when the scales hit their tipping point, reviews were like so helpful, like amazing, like, wow, great. But ultimately, honestly, sometimes I think it's just too much information. Is there a better way to do it? Probably. Have I thought of it? No. Have I tried to do it with my own company? Yeah. But I also am like, yeah, I think that like you have to really remember what motivates somebody to leave a review and why. So like what kind of, what grain of salt am I taking this review that I'm reading with?
I also think if you're shopping for something at a site like say Amazon, where you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many bots, there's so many companies, how do I ascertain between these two things? Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in those cases, it is something that you could go to Target or to the hardware store and have someone actually help you and find the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so part of your aggravation is that you want to do something that is optimizing and you are failing to optimize the experience because the reviews are bad and the sorting mechanisms are bad and the labeling is bad and Amazon hasn't done anything to control it. So cut bait if you can. And I want to very much acknowledge not everyone can always go to the store. I grew up in a place without a Target. It's real. Like the closest thing that you could do is go to a Walmart, and still the in-person shopping experience at a Walmart is going to be superior to the online experience of shopping at a Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just it's gonna be a lot easier. Like it might seem like it's harder, but it's actually easier. And I think that's hard. That's hard to like get into our heads. Like even when I lived in Brooklyn, there would be things that I wanted to buy online because I didn't want to schlep to the Lowe's at Gowanus. And I lived like not far from that Lowe's at Gowanus.
I lived a block and a half from that Lowe's in Gowanus, and I did not want to buy things at that Lowe's in Gowanus. Like, I mean, especially in New York, like the denser your city. I mean, to go to the Costco, inhumane.
No.
But, I mean, it's like a bazillion other problems. Like, I would rather go to a hardware store, locally, you know, family-owned hardware store in my neighborhood. But how could they like afford the rent in this place? You know, so like, yeah, if the choices are go to Lowe's.com or go to Lowe's in Gowanus and it's going to take like 2 hours, I'm just going to go Lowe's.com.
But then you might get the wrong thing, and then you have to go to the post office, which is an even more arduous experience in New York.
And then it's my problem.
So I think sometimes thinking about, why am I shopping this particular way that feels really bad? If it's out of absolute necessity, I get it. Mm-hmm. But if it's not, if there are other options that are available to you that maybe the experience of shopping is less bad and will require fewer returns and less dissatisfaction.
Yep.
And also then just rely on people who have advice about this sort of thing, whether it's in a group like yours or a text thread or your parents. I mean, other people have had the need that you have had in the past. So there are people out there, even if it's just like asking a question on Instagram with a little like Instagram box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People love giving advice.
Exactly. Someone else has bought this before. Someone else you know has bought what you need before.
This has been fantastic. In the AAA segment, Ask Ann Anything, Melody and I are going to answer 2 more shopping-related questions, one about shopping for clothes and one about buying a house. So if you need that conversation in your life, head to culturestudypod.substack.com. Caroline, where can people find you on the internet if they want to hear more?
You can go on Instagram and follow G Thinks Just Bought It Pod. And then from there, there's like a link in that bio that will take you everywhere else you need to be. The Facebook group, the newsletter, old episodes of the podcast, including that drain plug episode somewhere in the beginning. But the place to start is Instagram.
Is it from you that I found out about the drain plug that like collects all the hair?
Mm-hmm. The shroom, the tub shroom.
The tub shroom.
Yeah.
That was Bev's favorite puppy toy, was to go into the tub and take out the tub shroom.
Yeah, I believe
Life changer.
Life changer.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been so great.
So fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have so many great episodes in the works, and I promise you don't want to miss any of them. If you want to suggest a topic, ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, check the show notes for a link to our Substack. If you want to support the show and get bonus content, head to culturestudypod.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive advice time segment, weekly discussion threads for each episode, and a link to a special Google form so that your questions go to the front of the line. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod. Thank you so much for your support.